This is an India Today exclusive. I'm being joined by U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Ambassador Julianne Smith, who's joining me from Brussels to discuss a lot on NATO efforts, but particularly on the Russia-Ukraine war. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Ambassador Smith.
Thank you.
Let's begin with the Russia-Ukraine war and the efforts when it comes to fighting this war. The United Nations General Assembly session is underway, and a lot of conversation has to do with the war efforts. In that, I'd like to ask you, how important is it for Ukraine to be a part of NATO, and where does Ukraine's NATO membership bid stand, really?
Sure. Well, first, let me say that NATO's door remains wide open. There have been efforts by Russia in recent months and years to try and persuade NATO to close that door shut, but it is wide open, and we just welcomed Finland this spring. We hope to welcome Sweden this fall sometime soon. And of course, assuming Ukraine is interested, the alliance has already said that Ukraine's future is in NATO. Just at the last summit, we were able to agree on some new steps on that path. We created something called the NATO Ukraine Council, and we also agreed to some practical assistance for Ukraine to help them with their long-term modernization. So we anticipate that Ukraine is on its way. Allies are in agreement on that front, and our message to Moscow is very simple. NATO's door will remain open.
But Ambassador Smith, what are the niggling areas? Why the delay? Ukraine has been insisting. In fact, President Zelensky was confident that Ukraine will become a part of NATO, and it did not happen as soon as they wanted. And since the war, they have been insisting that Ukraine should be a part of NATO.
Well, everything that happens inside the NATO alliance is done by consensus, which means that all 31 nations have to agree to take action. In this case, on the question of Ukraine's membership, allies are in agreement that we are not in a position to extend an invitation to Ukraine while there is a full-scale war unfolding on their territory. We want to focus right now on helping Ukraine defend its territory against Russian aggression. We want Russia to stop this war. They started it. They could stop it tomorrow if they so desired, and that is the focus. But over the long term, we have all agreed that Ukraine's place is ultimately inside the NATO alliance, and we will all keep working towards that goal.
Well, there has been there is political consensus within Ukraine, but there are certain commanders who are coming out and saying that that NATO is accusing NATO of giving bad advice. What is your take on these commanders? They're not all, only a few who come out. What is your take on how Ukraine views this, or these commanders view NATO's advice to Ukraine?
Well, first of all, let me clarify that the NATO alliance proper is not providing any direct legal support to Ukraine, and the NATO alliance is not providing any training to Ukrainian soldiers. Individual countries, many of them are members of the NATO alliance, are conducting training. And I think the position that the United States has, as well as the other allies that are doing this type of training, is that we are offering the Ukrainians the best possible training that we can give. We are listening to their immediate military requirements on the battlefield and trying to help them by training them on new capability, which many of us are donating to the Ukrainian forces. But ultimately, it is up to the Ukrainians themselves. They are the ones fighting this war. None of us are with them on the battlefield. They have to determine how to utilize that training, how to put it to good use, how to use those new capabilities, and that's essentially in their hands. If they opt to utilize some, but not all of the training, that's fine. We will continue to provide training to them as they desire, but we will also take feedback from them, what's working, what's not working on the battlefield, and how many of us can continue to help them achieve battlefield success.
And my final question to you, there is a report by Intercept which says that America ensured sales of arms by Pakistan to Ukraine that ended with Ukraine in return for IMF loans. What's the truth behind these reports that Intercept has put out? Is there truth? Is it real? Did Pakistan really supply, because Ukraine requires Soviet-grade and Soviet-era weapons? Did America mediate between Pakistan and Ukraine to ensure that Ukraine is supplied with the arms and munitions that they are in severe shortage of?
Well, the United States leads something called the UDCG, which is a group of countries that comes together, not just NATO allies, but countries from around the world that are interested and able to provide security assistance to Ukraine. The U.S. works with a variety of countries to make sure that we understand the Ukrainian requirements and then what individual countries can give. I don't have any specific details on the specific example with Pakistan per se. I would direct you back to Pakistan to understand more about any potential contributions. But I will say that through this UDCG, the United States will continue to see how we can assist Ukraine as it defends its territory against Russian aggression.
On that note, Ambassador Julianne Smith, many thanks for joining us here on India Today.
Thank you.